Hi, so lesson one is going to be making a pillow, which is super easy to make. This is a more of a rectangular pillow. And then I have these pillows here. So this one is one I've already had, which I'm going to recover. So yeah, like stuffing is actually quite expensive, the polyfill. So it's good if you already have pillows that you want to just recover. And then these ones are ones you buy. These are expensive too, but they're ones that you can buy from Michaels, or you can also get them from Fabricland, of course, plus other places. I'm pretty sure IKEA even has them. But yeah, these ones already have the polyfill in them, so you just have to make a cover for it. We're going to learn how to do a zipper cover later, but for now we're just going to do easy recovering a pillow, okay? Okay, so this is my fabric I'm going to be using to recover those pillows. This is going to be the backing, and then this is going to be the front. This is something my mom picked out in Calgary in their Michaels. They actually have fabric sections, so this came from the fabric section of Michaels out in Alberta. I'm not sure if any of our stores in Ontario have fabric, but I know the ones in Kingston and the ones in Ottawa that I've checked don't have fabric. But anyways, it's they carry nice line. This is actually more like a linen kind of fabric. It's really, really nice. And this is nice to work with too. The only thing about this is you can see it's quite wrinkled. So we need to iron everything before we ever sew. So we are going to do that right now. So if it's a square pillow, you're going to measure one side across. This one, it goes seam to seam. This one is 18 inches. See how it's right on the seam there? I don't have to measure this way because I already did it horizontally, but I don't have to do it vertically because unless it's rectangular, then you have to measure both ways, okay? So just measure in the one way because this is a perfectly square pillow. You're gonna actually have to add 1/2 inch for the seam allowance. So we will do that as well. So you're gonna have to get yourself a really, really good iron. I have the Tefal Ultra Glide. This has lasted me at least 5 or 6 years now. But it's a very good quality iron. If you don't get a good quality iron or you use the one that you use on your clothes, you may find it will make marks on your clothing or on your fabric that you're trying to sew with. So you don't really want to have the same iron for your clothing. Anyways, this one has, I do always fill it with water. I know everybody has different opinions about what to steam and not, but I like to actually steam everything. So this type of fabric I would steam, some you can't. But if you have your iron too hot, you should follow the instructions down here. So it does say, put it on cotton or whatever. Mine's actually was on a bit heavier fabric. So this is more of a linen cotton, so I can kind of scroll it a bit more to be a bit hotter, okay? So it just gets rid of all of the wrinkles, obviously, but it also, using steam, it won't stick to your fabric. Some fabrics you have to be careful with because you cannot iron them. So if you're buying fabric for making these pillows, make sure that you are buying fabric that isn't going to melt with the iron. Okay, so now you can see that the fabric is ironed and ready to go. Now sometimes you may find there's a center crease here that's kind of hard to get out. You can use a bit more steam on that if you want. But we're not looking for perfection today. We're just looking for learning a new skill. So as you can see, I'm going to start sewing here in my kitchen because it's nice and bright. I actually just want people to, when they start off sewing, to not expect that they're going to have a sewing room, because, you know, that's just high expectations for yourself. I want people to be able to sew anywhere in their house and drive their husband crazy. Because honestly, mine gets upset when I make too much of a mess. But anyways, that's okay. He gets over it. I could have an addiction to other things instead of sewing. So this is a really nice rotary cutter and an Omnigrid mat. This is used for quilting, but you can use it for sewing as well. So I'm going to use that today. I don't expect you to go out and buy one. So I'm going to show you how to cut out your pillow without having to use this as well. So the Keurig machine works perfectly as a tripod because I didn't want to invest in a tripod either, unless I'm going to keep doing this and people actually enjoy these videos. So I wanted to show you how this rotary cutter works. Basically, it opens up like this. That's when you can cut. That's a very sharp blade. You got to be very careful you don't cut yourself with it. The other thing you need is a Omnigrid ruler. So this is a big long ruler. You can get square ones, but I recommend this one. It is 24 inches long by 6 inches wide. Okay. Anyways, it just helps you cut your fabric more perfectly. The other way that I'm going to show you is without this stuff so that you don't go and put a lot of money out. We can measure it with a ruler and a pencil on the opposite side of the fabric. Whenever you cut fabric, this is called the selvage, and you want to actually cut that off because you never want that to show in your pillow. See how it's rippled here? That's just the edge so that the fabric doesn't unravel when they do the actual processing of making of the fabric. The other cool thing is you can always read on the side here. So say if you really liked a fabric and you weren't able to get it in Kingston, just like this is from a Michaels out in Alberta. I can actually look this up online, the actual name, and I can order it online. Isn't that cool? So that's always something to keep. So if you feel like you want to keep a piece of this fabric, instead of keeping a swatch of it, you can just keep that part so that you're not wasting any of your fabric if you ever want to buy extra of it. Okay? So now this has markings all along here, right? Remember I said we were going to do the pillow 18? So we're going to actually make our fabric. We're going to cut this selvage off first. And I'm going to put my ruler down here. And the way you've got to cut is I'm going to cut that right to there. So it's going to be 3/4 of an inch off. Okay, so that'll get all that selvage off, plus a little bit of extra there. And when you cut with the rotary cutter, you're going to want to push down pretty hard so that it goes right through the fabric. And I'm going to have to hold on to my ruler really tight and push down. Okay, so you're going to go right across here like that. So now I've got my selvage, and I'm going to keep that little piece of fabric there because it tells me what design it is in case I have to get more. Okay, and then I can throw it out when I've decided I don't want any more of it. When we're talking about selvages, this is how you're going to cut your fabric anyways. So the stretch is going this way. This fabric is not stretchy, but rule of thumb is when the selvage is at the edge of this over here, you're going to be cutting out your pattern where the stretch would go this way. So sometimes on pattern, you'll see an arrow that'll go like this. And that just means the stretch, that it's going to stretch out that way. So you always put the selvage there. You're always going to cut with the selvage on this side anyways, with anything that you make, okay? So now that that selvage cut off, I'm going to make sure it's all lined up here. Now this part here is not that even, but it's okay. But I'm still going to slice that off later anyways, because this is too wide. So I need to get... This is definitely even here on the side. So that's the part that I'm going to have right up to that line. I want to see my numbers. So see how I can't see my numbers? I'm going to pull this up a bit more because you're always going to want to see your numbers. So I want this side perfectly straight with that line. This is not straight with the line, but we'll fix that. Okay. We're going to make our cut here at 18. We're going to flatten this out as best we can, and then we're just going to cut right up there at number 18. So once you've made your cut, you should have it perfectly cut right to the edge of that. See how that cut that nicely? Then you can move that away. Then what I usually do is I look at either side and think which one's more crooked, but I'm going to have to fix up both of them anyways. So now you're going to turn your fabric this way, okay? And you're going to want to fix this edge so that it's super even. So you can pull it to whatever squares you want. I could bring it in there, there, it doesn't really matter as long as I'm lining it up. Because this is your line down here that's perfectly even, and so is this one. So now you got to get the sides perfectly even. And so what I try and cut off the least amount of fabric as possible, but see how when I line this up to half an inch, it doesn't cut off a lot of fabric, right? But see how that's very wonky there? So we need to just cut that up nice and straight so it's perfect. Yeah, all I cut off was this little piece here, and now this is perfectly nice and straight. See that? I pulled it away from the line, but it's perfectly straight with that line there, okay? So now this pillow, we still have to make it 18 by 18. So it is 18 going up and down this way because we already cut it 18 that way. But we still need it 8. I'm going to pull it up this way because I just find it easier to see the numbers. So we're going to have to make it 18 the other way. So see how that's not 18, it's 21 and a half, okay? And here it's at 19. But that's just because I have it pulled up an inch from here. So if you do pull it up because you want to see the numbers easier, just make sure that you're remembering this is actually 18, but you've just pulled it up an inch, right? Makes sense? All these little simple things that, you know, you think you won't do, but you actually do make those kind of mistakes because it's easy to make them. So now we've got, the ruler is going to go here. I don't have anybody here to help me film this, so it's kind of hard for me to cut and film at the same time. So I think maybe in another video I'll show how to rotary cut things better. But you can also go on YouTube and find a video on how to rotary cut. I'm sure you'll figure it out from that as well. Okay, so just going to cut this part now, okay? Okay, so now this is perfectly 18 by 18. If I pull it down here, with the numbers, it's 18 by 18. Look how nice and square that is. It's perfect. So that's going to be your pillow, okay? So you can actually choose to keep this little scrap of fabric. I'm just going to dump it, but you could actually use a piece like this to make like a pin cushion or something if you wanted to. So maybe I'll keep that. Actually, I try not to hoard too much fabric, but this would actually make a cute little pin cushion. I like the rectangular ones. So maybe in another session, we'll teach you how to make a pin cushion. Okay, so I did say earlier on in the video when we measured it that it was 18 by 18 and that you should add an inch on to make it 19 by 19. But I cut the pillow 18 by 18, and that's not a mistake actually, because usually when I make a pillow, I actually don't put an extra bit of fabric on there for the sewing seam allowance because I find it doesn't fit at the corners really well. So if you make it the exact same size as the pillow, I find it's puffier and it looks like it was never covered over. So yeah, if you add that extra seam allowance, like I said earlier in the video, don't do that because you're going to end up with a floppy corners and stuff. Certain things you have to add seam allowance, like when you do clothing, things like that. As we go along, I'll show you that. But with pillows, I have made a lot of pillows and I make a lot of memory pillows, and the memory pillows, I find when you measure the pillow, if it's 18 by 18, cut your fabric 18 by 18. Okay, so this is going to be the backing for the fabric. Also bought at Michael's out in Calgary, so it really matches the gray in the birds and floral pattern. You may want to actually put the same pattern on the other side, which is totally fine. I just like to do plain because I find the plain fabrics are a little bit less expensive than the pattern fabrics can be more expensive. If they're not, yeah, do the pattern on the other side. The only thing is if you're a perfectionist and you want that pattern to match to the other side, it's going to look funny on around the corners. So I prefer to just put something else on the back, to be honest. Sometimes people can do pillows where they have like a Christmas scene on the one side and then plain on the other. So they just turn the pillows over when it's not Christmas, things like that. So yeah, there's lots of different things you can put on the other side as well. You don't have to do plain. But if you're going to put the pattern on the other side, you may not like it when it doesn't match perfectly at the seam, with like this actually matching the other side. But I don't really think that matters. To me, that doesn't bother me at all. And like I said, we're not trying to get perfection here. We're trying to just learn a new skill. So this fabric is pretty long, a lot longer than the other one. So I can do two things. I can actually fold it in half and cut it, or I can just cut it long and just move it along as I go along. So there's two ways to do that. So I prefer actually to fold it and do it. So I'll show you that in a sec. I've already cut my selvage off here, but you want this to fit perfectly because this is the edge you cut that was perfect. We cut. So that you want to match. You don't care about the top being even because you're going to cut that off later. Okay, so you want the side, whatever side you cut, that's the side that's going to be your straight side that you're using the ruler with. So again, I'm going to cut 18 inches squares. Okay, now this is still folded, and because it's a longer piece, I don't really want to cut one at a time. I can cut both of them at the same time. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to move this around here this way. And I'm going to, instead of cutting the fold off, because I can do that after at the end, I'm going to actually just, this is way over 18 inches. As you can see, we got lots of room. So I'm just going to make this part even, because see how that's not even there? Just going to make that edge very even. So I'm going to actually put it probably to the 20 there. With, again, trying to not cut off as much as the least amount. Okay, now that that's cut out there, we still have 2 inches to cut off. So I'm going to flip it around this way now. And we're going to bring it right down to here so that we have 18 by 18. So that's 18 up there, see? 18 up there is perfectly straight, but we still have 20 here, okay? So I'm just going to pull it up a bit just so I can see the numbers, and that's fine. Because we know that this way it's already 18, so we don't have to worry about that. So I just have to, the most important one is that this is straight here, right against this, okay? So that is good. And then we're going to cut it, put the ruler here, and we're going to cut right along that 18. So then we're cutting out two at once. And so there's the backing, and now we can actually make a cute little pin cushion here eventually. We'll do that in another video, and that can be the back, and this can be the front. We just stuff it, and yeah, that would be so cute, I think. We'll do that in another video. Now, before you do anything else, once you've finished your cut, you need to look and make sure that it's all square here, and it is perfectly square with 18, okay? All the way around. Perfect. Okay, so if you look at this piece of fabric, it is not 18 by 18. So this is, I'm making two pillows, so it's about 21.5 by 27. So we're gonna have to cut a lot off that, right? So the selvage is here. It was on the other side too, but we already cut that off because we cut the first pillow. I'm just gonna show you another technique. So those of you who don't wanna go out and invest in a rotary cutter, we can just use measurements and a ruler, okay? So basically you would want, like, you could even use your kid's ruler if you really wanted to, okay? And we're gonna get a pencil, and we're gonna actually use scissors. So you're not gonna wanna put any marks like on this. Actually, you're gonna wanna cut that off like we did with the rotary cutter. So what you're gonna do is you're going to put your ruler about here, and you're just gonna try and be straight with the fabric, and you don't just pretend you don't have that mat underneath there. Maybe you have newspaper down or something. I actually wouldn't recommend newspaper, to be honest, because it makes marks on fabric. So maybe some, like a quilt, like an old quilt that you're not using anymore, or something like that is really good to put under when you're cutting stuff, so that you don't mark your table, right? So that's another good reason why this mat is so awesome, because you do not, when you're putting pins through things, you don't go through your wooden table in your dining room or something, or cut with the scissors. So it is actually a good investment. I mean, I've had My mat and rotary cutter, I've only had to replace my rotary cutter once. I've had it for over 25 years. So this is my second mat I've gone through. Some people, what they do is when they use up their mat, like this mat is actually in excellent condition. My other one had slice marks all over it, but this one I only bought like 2 years ago. Some people will then turn it over and use the back side of it and then use that up. But the only thing is it doesn't have the numbers on the back, right? So these are about $110, I think. They might even be a bit more now. You can get little ones as well if you want to start out with getting a small one. I do prefer the bigger one though. And there are smaller rotary cutters too, so you don't have to get this size, but I prefer the bigger one, of course. It's just nicer when you're doing bigger items like quilts and things like that. So going back to how we're going to mark this, you're going to put this here and you're going to go with a pencil all the way around. So I'm just going to show you how I'm going to do that. Okay, we're going by inches again. So you're going to want to make your first mark a little bit above this because this isn't even, right? So you're going to want to start, that's your 12 inches there, but we want it 18 inches. So we're going to go here and then we're going to go make a mark up here because that's the 12 inches. But you want to get to 18. So then you're going to do 6 more, right? So you're going to bring that up to 6. That's where the mark is there. And then you're going to make your other mark here. You want it to be pretty even there. You're going to go with a 0. And then you're going to draw a straight line all the way through. So there's your line, perfectly straight. And across here, I maybe should have gone up a little bit more because down here it kind of comes off to here. And this is our last line. But here I don't even have to cut because it's straight in line with this. Again, we're not looking for perfection here. We're looking for just to try and be as straight as possible. Now I'm going to do the lines on the other side going up this way. So we're making a complete square. Okay, so you can see how I've got the pencil line all the way around. Make a perfect square. So that's actually the other way you can do it so that you don't have to buy a rotary cutter, okay? I just want people to be able to just start sewing without really much equipment. Now these scissors, they're not the best scissors, but they're cheap ones you can buy at Fabricland, or you can even go on Amazon. Try and use scissors specifically for fabric and not cut paper in between, like if you're into other crafts and things. You want to have a proper pair of scissors for cutting. I do have a lot better scissors. I just need to sharpen some of them. So I kind of just use whatever's on hand. And you're just going to cut obviously right across, right along that line, okay, all the way around. Okay, so the fabric's cut and it's just as good as using the rotary cutter, just takes a little bit extra time, but that is 18 by 18 as well. Just wanted to mention something. So because we're doing a square pillow, you don't really have to worry that this is a directional fabric because it's, you're gonna have the pillow sitting up this way anyways, right? But say if you're doing a rectangular pillow, right? And just imagine the birds are on that. You're gonna want the birds to be sitting upright. This is not a pillow that you can turn this way, so you wouldn't want your birds being sideways or upside down or something. Do you understand? So you want that to be making sure that you're cutting this fabric rectangular across this way. So I'll fold the fabric so you can kind of see what I mean. So you would want it more rectangular like this. I'll just put it on the pillow itself. And there, so you got your rectangular pillow if you want to make a rectangular one. Do you get that? Pretty easy to understand. Because if you cut, say if you cut the fabric this way, you would have an elongated pillow with the fabric going this way, and you're not going to want your pillow sitting like this on your chair, right? So yeah, just if you're doing just a square pillow, you do not have to worry about what direction your fabric's going. If you're doing a rectangular one, you have to pay attention to that, okay? Okay, so now I have my 2 pillows cut out. These are the fronts. And actually what's really interesting is I didn't even try and make that happen, but look, the birds are pretty much in the exact same spot as the other birds, so that's pretty cool. That actually came out exactly the same. Neat. So the only other thing we have to do is we have to now attach the backing. So the thing that you always have to remember in sewing 101 is measure twice, cut once, right? They always say that even with woodworking. The other thing is right sides together. So you find the right side of your fabric. This one, I can't really tell what is the right side, and that's fine. If you can't tell the difference, then who cares? You're not even going to notice the difference. Because some of the fabrics you can't tell, right? With linens especially, unless there's a pattern. Like this is obviously the wrong side, and then this is the right side. So the right side just means the side that you want to show, okay? So you want to put your right sides together like this, okay? So you're gonna do that with both of your pillows. Okay, so this one fits really good. I think there's a little bit of extra here on the bottom, which I don't really like that, but you can sew it here so that you don't actually worry about that. But I'm gonna actually just trim that little bit off so that they're perfectly square. It's gonna make it a little bit smaller. It's kind of like Ernie and Bert when Ernie keeps cutting pieces off and then it becomes smaller and smaller. But yeah, that's not going to make a difference really at all. Okay, it's going to be very minor difference. Let me see, this one's pretty good too. This one I can trim a tiny little bit. You just want them pretty much exactly the same size. So I'm going to trim that little piece off there. So now they're perfectly cut, exactly the same. So we're going to actually start sewing. So you can start anywhere. It doesn't really matter what part of the square you start at. If it was the rectangular pillow, you really want to try and do the seam that you sew, because you're going to sew a piece of it together by hand. I'll show you that in a minute. You're going to want that to be at the bottom. But this is a square pillow, like I said, so it doesn't matter. So what we're going to actually do is we're going to just sew and start. I usually start like in the middle here. And what I'll do is I don't mark lines like this. I just kind of eyeball it. I put pins in my sewing, and I'm going to do about 1/4 inch seam allowance. I actually don't do a big 1/2 inch seam allowance. So when you actually start sewing, I'll start sewing here. I'll start sewing here, and I'll come up a little bit and then come across. I'm going to sew all the way down here, all the way across here. Then pivot, go all the way down here. Pivot, then go all the way down here. Pivot, and then go all the way down here. And then you're going to pivot into here. And so this part's going to be left open. But when you do this little part here, when you actually sew a line here, when you actually turn it inside out, it actually is much better. It really does turn easier around the pillow. So I do recommend that. And actually just wanted to say, if you were stuffing the pillow, you would probably only go this amount. But because it's a pillow that we already have done, I'm actually going to have to make that wider, to be honest. So I'm going to come this wide. So I don't have to erase this, but I will, just so it doesn't confuse people. So you're actually going to have a wider opening because you're going to want to get that pillow inside it. When you have stuffing, you can just take little pieces of stuffing and stuff it. But when you're actually got the pillow, it's really hard to stuff the whole thing in there unless you make a wider opening. So yeah, if you're going to be sewing in your dining room, just get a small little extension cord like that. Then you don't have to move the table or anything. You're able to sew wherever you want. And so a lot of people were asking me to show you how to thread your machine. Well, I guess every machine is pretty similar. But what I recommend, because you know what, it's really, really boring to watch a video on how to thread your machine, is I really recommend you to look at the brand. So mine's a Husqvarna Viking, and the model is Opal 690Q. You can look it up on the internet. There's on YouTube, there'll be all kinds of videos to show you how to use your machine. Obviously, manuals come with machines, but sometimes those get lost. But most of the companies now have online manuals too that you can download for free. So that's a good idea too. But I'll show you quickly how I do my machine. So I just turned my machine on. Mine does a little bit of embroidery too. It's actually quite a nice one. This one I got at Stitch by Stitch here in Kingston. Fantastic store. Heather's fantastic. If you're into Husqvarna, Husqvarna makes snow blowers and ride-on lawnmowers, all kinds of cool tools, but they also make really good, amazing sewing machines. So I've always had a Husqvarna. 25 years ago, I bought my first Husqvarna, and I only just sold it maybe 2 years ago and got it upgraded to this machine. So this one I think was just under $2,000, and then plus tax, which may sound like a lot of money to you, but actually 25 years ago, my old machine, I think I paid $2,400 for it. And so I was able to, they hold their value, so I was able to sell it for maybe $450 to a lady who had a older Husqvarna than mine and wanted to upgrade to it. And she asked me, so what's wrong with it? And I said, absolutely nothing. I just upgraded to one that has a few more embroidery stitches. So I kind of almost regret actually selling it, because sometimes when you have your machine in the shop, just like you have your car in the shop, getting oiled, and because you should actually take really good care of your machines. Every year you should be getting it serviced. It's usually between $100 and $150 depending on what you need done. And then your machine is always going to be in good working order. If you're not taking good care of it, you're not getting those yearly checks, then it's not going to be working very great, and you might even break it. So you really should, you're going to have more problems with it basically. So you just want to take really good care of it. So I always take this is my bobbin winder here. But I always take my thread and I put it on this way, because see, this right here has little ridges on it. This side doesn't, so that's the way I put it on. And I put my little thingy on here, because this is going to hold my thread on. If I didn't have this on there, that's going to just fall off. That thread's just going to fall right off there. So this is just a holder to hold it. I don't push it on super tight. I actually, if you put it on super tight, it's harder for your thread to come through. So I put it on, like, take it off a little tiny bit, so it has a little bit of room to move around. And you know, some people are probably going to disagree with some of the things I say, but this is just how I do things. So the way I come around here, I just have to go up here. Pretty much all the machines are similar. I just come down here. There's nothing to catch there. And then you come down here. There's always a down and an up, okay? And I should know the proper terms for all this stuff, but you know, I don't. So now I'm gonna catch my thread in here. That's why I don't wanna do a video on how to thread your machine, because it's really boring. I would have to tell you all the terms and everything. So I don't know if you noticed, I think I went off camera there for a second, but I came right around here, caught that, okay? And you can even see the arrows on my machine. So look for little clues on your machine about the arrows. And then when I come down here, I only have one little spot to click into. If you can see that. I have to take 2 hands to click that in, I think. Yeah, because it does it really easily, but I just usually use 2 hands, just 1 second. So that's clicked in there. If you can see that, it's to the front, right? See how that's right there? So now I just have to thread my needle, and then I'm good to go. Now the other thing is, I can bring up my foot even more by just pressing a button. My machine's pretty new, so it's amazing the stuff it can do. So this is Husqvarna. Actually, some of the machines don't have this, but this has like a little symbol on the top here. So this is up, and then this is down. So the plain flat side that doesn't have any symbol on it that you can't feel, that always goes down. or you can go by which way the thread comes. So the thread always comes around this way. So when you put your bobbin in, you put it in flat, and then you're supposed to pull it around this way until it clicks, okay? So if you just keep pulling it, it's not going to click. So you have to kind of put your finger on there, and I felt it click there. So that's good. With this machine, I don't actually have to manually pull up the thread. However, I like to because it's just less chance of it getting caught and everything. I meant to thread my needle. Anyways, so when I hold the thread here, you're going to manually use this lever here, and you're going to have your needle go down, and it's going to pull up your thread, okay? So now I'm going to pull on my thread because that's looped it under there. Now I just take my fingers and I just pull it out. I don't like having my threads this long, so I like to actually just cut that off. Then you don't have any problems with anything jamming. If you're finding when you start sewing, you probably want to start sewing on a piece of scrap fabric. Not every time you sew, but I'm just saying when you're a beginner. Just to see if you're getting a nice line. Because if it's all getting bunched up underneath, then it means something's issue, and there's an issue with your bobbin. It's not in the machine properly. It's not, the thread is not wound on smoothly, because sometimes your thread won't wind on perfectly smooth. You have to have that perfectly smooth when you're doing the bobbin. Maybe I'll show that later. Okay, so we're gonna get sewing here. Okay, so some of you may think I probably shouldn't use black thread, that maybe I should use gray or even white because it's white over on this side, but really it doesn't matter. Like, you're not gonna see the thread on something like this. So I probably would ideally use white though, but you know what? We're just gonna use the black because I'm just too lazy to go and switch it out. So if you can see my line there, I'm gonna start with that. So I'm gonna put my foot down, and all I have to do to put my foot down, most machines that aren't as high tech as this one, you just have to manually put your foot down. But with mine, I just press on the pedal and it automatically goes down. So now my machine also has a fix it. So meaning that it will make a starting point and kind of reverse and go forward so that it knots it, so that you don't have to reverse at all, which is a really nice feature to have. So I'm just gonna go forward. It's going into my fabric. I'm just gonna go a little bit here. Now I want needle down because see how my needle is up? It's a real pain when I want to turn. So you want needle down, which is this button here. Everybody has a needle down position on their machine. And I actually wanted to come back a bit more. Let me just see here. Okay, so I came out a bit too far, so I'm just gonna take out a couple of those stitches, but that's fine. So just because I'm on camera, so it's hard for me to see where I'm going to. Okay, so I'm just gonna go straight ahead. That's about where I want to go. You kind of eyeball it. I kind of know. Okay, so I like to use the edge of my foot as my guide. These are all different numbers here that you can use as well if you want. That's more for dressmaking, things like that. But for a pillow, if you want just... Okay, you can set your machine to 1/4 of an inch too, but I'm just using the foot. This will be perfectly fine. Now when I get to this corner, I'm going to want to have enough room so that when I pivot, it's going to be like that, right? So see, I can go one more stitch because it's not right to the edge. So you just, my machine actually, when I stop, it automatically lifts up a bit. You may have to manually lift up your foot. Okay, that's another feature that this machine has. That's really awesome. See, that's pretty perfect there. So now we're gonna continue going around, keeping our foot right at that edge there. And you keep your hands on this side. You're always supporting your fabric. See how now that fabric isn't perfectly coming together. So I'm gonna pull it together to make sure that it's all even, because we cut it perfectly so that it's even. So yeah, the other reason I wanted to use the black thread was because then you could actually see where I sewed better on the video. So, and this is okay that this is just off a tiny bit. It's really not going to make any difference at all. You just try and be as straight as you can. And so I went around every corner, came around, and so you can see here there's a big opening. And that's stitched down to here. But I kind of went too far here. So I'm going to just pick out these couple stitches. But I did fix it here. So you're not going to end up having this unravel or anything. So I can take out these couple of stitches with a seam ripper. The pillow cover is almost done. All you got to do now is you have to cut your corners. So that's the only way to get your corners to be nice and not bulky at all. You want to cut your corners closest as you can to the stitching without cutting it. Okay, so that's close enough. Do all the corners like that. All 4 corners, okay? Next thing you're going to do is you're going to turn this back right side out, okay? Because this is inside out right now. So now you're going to flip it out. So you're just going to take your fabric and pull it out this way through the hole, the opening that you have, okay? This is pretty much what your pillowcase is going to look like before you stuff it with the pillow. Now, so I wanted to show you how the corners come out pretty good there because you made that little cut. So you can use a seam ripper, a pair of scissors, or a lot of people use a pencil with the eraser on the end. But I like to use the scissors because I'm super careful with them. These are my very sharp scissors. So I just put my scissors up inside here and I go to each corner and I just poke it in there, just not to go through the fabric. You got to be very careful about that, but you want to push this out so that that corner is perfectly fine. See how that's not pushed out yet? I'll show you what it looks like when it is. So there you go. That's what you want your corner to look like. See? So it's perfectly across. This, I mean, this doesn't look bad, to be honest, but you want that poked out there. See? You want to push that through so that that sits flat like this, so it's perfectly square. So I think next time I probably would make my opening just a little bit wider, maybe out to here and then over to here when you have a pre-filled pillow that you're covering, because it was hard to get that in there, but I got it in there. So the easiest way to get it in there is to fold your pillow in half like this. Okay, and then you're going to shove it in that hole there. But you're going to actually shove it in this way, because you want the pillow to sit like that. Once it gets in there, it'll just do that, right? So the fabric wrinkled a little bit, and that's fine. I can just take the iron to that once I'm all done with the hand sewn part. Just put a little bit of steam on it and it'll totally take it out. You could also use one of those steamers that people use in dress shops. You can get those anywhere. I think Canadian Tire even has them. You can just use that as well to iron. So I'm going to have to show you how to hand stitch this close now, so that you don't see any of the stitching. For this part, you're going to want a thread that's going to match, because you may see little parts of the thread. If your hand sewing isn't pristinely perfect, I'll try and hide the stitches, but yeah, you don't want to be able to see the thread. And then you can grab yourself a needle. I will show you how I thread my needle. So I cut a piece of thread. I've now doubled it, so you can see I've folded it over. And I bring the two ends together. So it looks like this, okay? You have the two ends there. This is going to have a loop here. So you just basically have your thread folded in half, and you're going to thread this part through your needle. Okay, and we're ready to start hand sewing now. So the reason why I do this is because then you can just go through that loop in the end with your first stitch, and that's your knot. So you don't ever have to knot it at the end. I don't trust hand tied knots. You really need to do this way. So you're going to come in to your fabric. You're going to actually pull these two pieces here together, and then you're going to start sewing. Okay, so I got a hold of those pieces. What I'm going to do is I'm going to come in, doesn't matter what side. However, it's usually the side farthest away from you. So you're going to come in and you're going to go across to the front. Then you're going to go through your loop at the end before it goes through the fabric. And then that's your knot. See how that goes like that? There, that's your first knot. You can, if you want to secure it more, just go down through the same hole and come through that again. My needle just fell off. But that's okay, I can put the needle back on. See? Just do like that. Now this stitch that I'm doing is called a slip stitch. So I just try and come in here to the one side of the fabric. You don't have to go to the other side. You just want to come through the one layer. Otherwise you're going to see your stitches. Then you come up to the almost the top there. Just going through like that. You don't have to be super close together. You get better at this as you go along. And come back into the, I'm going into the gray fabric, just the first, like the first layer, not going right through. Coming up through to almost like basically you're going through the crease of the white. And I mean, close up you can probably see this, but you're not going to notice that on the pillow. So if you do your stitches pretty even, and you can see those little stitches there a little bit. I could have used white and then you wouldn't have seen it as much. But you can see that, that's fine. You're not even going to notice it because guess what? Your pillow's going to be sitting this way anyways. That's why we do it on the bottom part, right? So no one's even going to notice it because it's going to be sitting against the chair, okay? So at the end, I just want to show you what to do here to make your last knot. So I sewed that all the way across here. And to do your last knot, I did it already, but I'm going to do another one. So do two. So you're just going to come through like you would normally, okay? You're going to catch that loop like you did when you first started your sewing, and that's your knot. But you do it twice, okay? Okay, so the pillow is done. Now this one's for my mom. She's going to be moving out from Calgary to Kingston soon, and she picked out this fabric, so she wanted this for her new place when she moves in. So I'm very excited about that. So I'm making her two of these. And when you turn it around, it's the gray on the other side, of course. Okay. Now, as you can see, plain isn't as forgiving. When you have a pattern, you don't see all those lumpy, bumpy parts of the pillow. Economically, it's better to cover a pillow that you already have rather than going out and buying the stuffing. Because like I said, the polyfill is pretty expensive. So there's many different ways you can do it. We could have just stuffed it with the polyfill, then sewn that, hand sewn that up. So that's another way you can do it. So in an upcoming video, I may show you different other pillow techniques, like with a zipper to just do a cover. I'm also going to show you how to do a heart pillow for a patient who has gone through cardiac open heart surgery, so that you can actually do make a pillow for someone, or just make pillows for your hospital. I'm the coordinator for our hospital, and we make over 700 pillows for the year for the patients. So I go around and pick up all the fabric, deliver all the kits, and pick up the pillows and then deliver them to the hospital. So it's a pretty big ordeal doing that, but it's necessary. So we can learn how to do that later on as well, and I can give the pattern for that. But for this pillow, you do not need a pattern. It's just you do whatever size you want. I would love to see your creations, so please post them. Thank you, and have an awesome day. Until next month, we will have lesson 2 then. Bye-bye.